Well, hello guys, welcome back. It's good to be speaking with you, even if we don't get to see each other. COVID-19 has a lot to answer for. It has played havoc with our lives, and it has played havoc with our sacramental program. You are bringing your children to us to receive the sacrament of First Eucharist. It's the third sacrament in our sacramental program of 2019-20. And normally we would have completed it by June, but COVID got in the way, and here we are. What's suggested is that we have two talks. This talk, which will go through our booklet, the Eucharist booklet, which is like the confirmation and baptism booklets you receive. It's broken up into 4 sessions or chapters. This talk will go through chapters 1 and 2. The next talk will go through chapters 3 and 4. It is hoped that you will have prepared your children for the program by the end of November. So you need to have a look at this talk, and then when you can, have a look at the next one. You can sit down with your kids. They can be with you when you're looking through the program. You access it through the parish website. You should have received 2 mail-outs from the parish. The first one is dated the 9th of November. Sorry, first one dated the 21st of October. And that's the Sacrament of First Eucharist 2020. It talks about the sacrament, and it talks about how you're going to celebrate the sacrament, ending the program by November, and how you book on. So that's the first one you should have got. The next one is the 9th of November, which was registrations for the program. They're opening Friday the 13th of November, and they're closing Friday the 20th of November. So, how that works, maybe you've already registered, and I hope you have, because when you register, you will receive this booklet in hard copy form. So you'll receive the booklet, and you can work through it with your kids. It's, as I said, it's like the booklets for the other 2 programs, and you will know that through it you have borders to the booklet, which are this one is brown, and they've got little handy hints for you as parents in how you run the program and little bits of information. And it also has through the booklet places where your children can do worksheets, where they can do some drawings, they can answer some questions, they can write a prayer. Very important that you get your kids to do that when you get to that part, because that way you know that what you're saying to them, what I'm saying to them, is sinking in, and they're getting to understand what the booklet is trying to teach them. If you haven't received the manual, then I suggest you contact the parish office and make sure they send it to you by PDF. And if you don't have a computer, then you're not watching this, and you need to contact them somehow, and perhaps they can give you a hard copy. Once we've completed the program, which hopefully is by the end of November, you then get to choose what Mass your child will receive First Eucharist at. And it can be any Mass on a Sunday or a weekday after the program is finished to the end of January. So any Mass after the 30th of November to the end of January 2021. You choose which Mass you attend, but you need to book to the parish office. If you're choosing a Sunday Mass, we're limited in numbers at this stage because of COVID. Down at St Joey's we can have 80 people in a church at any time, and up to, and at St Rose we can have 50 people in at the church at any time. That includes parishioners. So if you're booking in for a Sunday Mass, 1, you have to book in, and 2, it will depend on the numbers, so how many people have already booked in. That's perhaps why we're having it spread out over 2 months to allow you enough time. Father Robert has suggested you might want to consider a weekday Mass, because particularly in January it's school holidays, so you might have some more time on your hands and you might be around, and there are less people at a weekday Mass than there are at a Sunday Mass. The Mass times are on the parish website. From Sunday Masses we have 5:30 on a Saturday evening up at St Joseph's, 8 o'clock on a Sunday morning at St Rose, 9:30 in the morning at St Joseph's, and 6 p.m. at St Rose. So 5:30 in the evening on Saturday at Joey's, and on Sunday 8 o'clock at St Rose, 9:30 at Joey's, and 6 in the evening up at St Rose. And of those Masses, the 6 in the evening at St Rose is usually the one that's not doesn't have as many people. So maybe that's something to aim for. Weekday Masses are a little bit complicated. On Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays and Saturday we're at St Joseph's, but the times vary. On Monday at 7:30am, Tuesday 7pm, Thursday 9:30am, Friday 9:30am and Saturday 9:30am. On the Wednesday, the Mass is up at St Rose and it's at 9:30am. And you're not going to get all those times. Have a look on the parish website. It has Mass times and you can satisfy yourself. Usually before your children receive First Eucharist, it's a good idea for them to make their reconciliation again. And to do that, you can contact Father Robert and Father Lisa's and make a time that's suitable to everybody. Or there is parish reconciliations after the 9:30am Mass on Saturday morning at St Joseph's. I understand the schools, St Joseph's and St Rose schools, are going to be involved in going through the program with the children, and perhaps Father Robert will make arrangements through the schools for reconciliation, for classes and those sorts of things. And I understand the catechists are going to be helping with the program as well, so you're going to get lots of help. So the Sacrament of First Eucharist is the third of the 4 sacraments of initiation. The first sacrament of initiation, as we know, is the sacrament of baptism. Then we have the sacrament of confirmation, which the children have celebrated, and then penance or reconciliation, and finally Eucharist. You are baptised once, and you are confirmed once, only once. You can only receive those sacraments once. But you can celebrate the sacrament of penance and the sacrament of Eucharist as many times as you want. And you're really encouraged to do that. These aren't once-a sacraments. These aren't sacraments we receive once and then don't usually use them again, except for Christmas and weddings and those sorts of things. They are sacraments which we are meant to participate in fully, as often as we possibly can. None of us are perfect, so we can all do with the sacrament of penance. And as I shared with you in the sessions, I had personal experience of having an issue with somebody and going to reconciliation and feeling the weight lifted off my shoulders because that issue dissipated when I confessed that I had this issue. It was my problem, not the others, and that helped me. So we all can use that sort of help from time to time. And then the First Eucharist, or Eucharist, is something we need to participate in as often as we possibly can. We're told that the Eucharist is food for the journey. We're on a journey of life. And as often as we receive the Eucharist, we are receiving food to help us with that journey, to prepare us for that journey. I was talking to one of my sons the other day. He's a grown man, he's 30, and he came over to our house and we had some dinner and drank some wine. He and I were drinking a bottle of red wine, and we got to talking, as you do, at the end of a bottle of red wine, about life. And we got to talking about religion, and he was telling me how little education he thought he had received, even though he'd gone to Catholic primary school, Catholic secondary school, part of a very active Catholic family. He hadn't really taken much away, he didn't think. And I shared with him that the Eucharist, when we celebrate the Eucharist, we get to be in the presence of God. We get to be part of that Last Supper, if you wish to call it, when Jesus breaks the bread and blesses the wine and gives and says, take and eat, take and drink. We're part of that. We get to be part of the miracle of that event. Even though it happened 2,000 years ago, every time we celebrate the Eucharist in church, we are part of that wonderful event. And it gives us the strength to understand our faith, to know our faith, to share our faith, and to live our faith. And it gives us the ability to live our lives perhaps a better person. Because if we focus outside of ourselves, we are becoming better people. And that's what the Eucharist can do for us. The other thing, the reason I mentioned the Eucharist, is because we miss you. We miss seeing you and your families at Mass on Sunday. Our parish is a community. You are part of that community. If you've registered your children at St Joseph's School or St Rose School, if you've got your children in the sacramental program at any of our government schools, you are part of our parish community already. The schools and the catechist program are part of our parish. You are parishioners. So when we have a meal, which we do every time we convene at Mass, when we have a celebration, the celebration of the death and resurrection of Christ, we want you there. Because like we're having a family meal, and some family member doesn't come because they're too busy, they've got other things, the gathering is diminished. We are diminished by your absence. We really need you to come. We need your vitality. We need your children's youth. We need your appreciation of the world as it is today. We, the church community, need you, the school community, to join us so that we can be better, so that our parish can be a better parish, so that we can live a better sacramental life. We will learn from you, and maybe you can learn from us. But we'll all be gathered together. So please don't be shy. Join us every weekend, if you can, at one of our churches. Eventually you'll find a Mass that suits your busy timetable. We've all got too much to do, but you'll find a Mass that suits you over the weekend. You'll even choose a chair that you like to sit in. And if anybody sits in your chair, you'll get annoyed because that's your chair. When my family were growing up, we have 6 children. We sat to the right side of St Joseph's Church, over the side near the windows as you face the sanctuary. And I'll tell you why we sat there. Because it was out of the way of the main street. We had 6 kids who made a lot of noise, and sometimes we had to run out of church if someone threw up or did other disgusting things. But also because there were beautiful windows there, and I was able to look out on a tree, particularly during the homily, and see the beautiful bushes because the homily wasn't doing much for me. So you'll find your own spot in church. You'll find a spot that makes you comfortable. And can I tell you, if you're worried about what other people are thinking about you with your children there and your children making noise and all those sort of things, don't go. Because most people are waiting for you to come. And if they see you've got an issue, if one child's carrying it up and you've got to take them outside, they'll step in and help look after the others, because that's what happened to us. And if anyone looks at you disapprovingly or clicks their tongue or shakes their head, just ignore them. You are part of our family. We're waiting for you to come. We welcome you. And we'll do everything we can to make your experience and the experience of your kids positive. And if you can think of a way that we can do it better, tell us, because we're only going to get better if you share with us whatever you think we're not doing as we should. So to the sacrament of the Eucharist. The word Eucharist comes from the Greek and it means thanksgiving. When we celebrate the Eucharist, we thank God for all that God's done for us. And we thank Jesus. We thank Jesus for taking on our humanity. God became human. Think about that. God became human. The biggest miracle you will ever encounter in your life. God became human. Took on our humanity, was born a child, not in a palace, but in a stable, in lowly circumstances. A dad that didn't have much money, a mum that didn't have much money, a poor family, a poor Jewish family, raised as a Jewish boy, lived the life of a Jewish boy, and then at age 30 went out and started to teach and to preach and to perform miracles. Why? So that we can understand that God is here amongst us. God is part of our lives and God is part of the world in which we live. And God, we encountered Jesus then through Jesus' life. We encounter Jesus through the scriptures. We hear at Mass and we hear the word, and we encounter Jesus in the forgiveness we may feel from time to time, and in the desire we have to do better, to do something for other people. That's Jesus tapping us on the shoulder and saying, you can help out there. So Jesus was born, Jesus took on our humanity, Jesus lived amongst us to show us how to live and to show us how to love, and then Jesus died for us. Jesus died for us to conquer our deaths. Jesus reached down into the grave, took us out of it, took us by the hand, and raised us as we were raised to eternal life. And as Jesus was risen, Jesus then ascended to the Father and shows us the way to that many-roomed home. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is the bridge from earth to heaven. And we follow Jesus up to our Father's many-roomed home. That's the next part of our journey. This is this part of our journey, and the next part is when we go to our Father's heavenly home. And Jesus showed us the way. Eucharist is also called communion. In the old money it was called First Communion, so the children received their First Communion, not their First Eucharist. When I received my communion, First Communion, I would have been 7 or 8 up in Brisbane, and we were all dressed in our school outfits. I think we had white shirts and grey shorts and socks and black shoes and little ties and a blue sash I think we had, and the girls of course wearing their bridesmaids' dresses. That was quite a thing. It was early in the morning, because in those days you had to fast for a long time before you could receive communion. So they used to do the First Communion early on Sunday morning, and the parents had to have something to eat. So these days we call it Eucharist, but there's also communion. And we are in communion with God and with each other. When we receive communion, when we come to Mass, we are coming together. This is not a one-on-one thing. This is not an individual thing. It's not your child and God. It's your child and you and a community that come together to celebrate. We celebrate in communion, and we celebrate the Eucharist. As I said, at the Last Supper, which was a Passover meal, Jesus was a Jewish man, his disciples were Jewish men, and they gathered for a Passover meal at Passover. Passover, of course, is that time when the Jewish people remember the Passover when they were freed from Egypt, when the angel of death passed over their houses and struck down the Egyptians, which then caused Pharaoh to allow them to leave. So they celebrate that every year with a Passover meal and obviously with religious celebrations. This was not the Passover meal, but it was a Passover meal. So Jesus and his disciples gathered in the upper room, and if you go to Israel, if you go to Jerusalem, you can go to the upper room. It doesn't look like an upper room, it looks like a church, but you can go there today. But you can also go to cafes in Jerusalem, and they have rooftop cafes. And if you go to a rooftop cafe, you've got a thing over the top, you've got a screen over the top, and people sitting out, and the wind's coming in, and that to me is where Jesus would have celebrated his meal, in an upper room, up above the shops, above the people. At the meal, Jesus took bread, broke it, said the blessing, broke it, gave it to the disciples, and said, "This is my body, take and eat." He then took the cup, blessed it, said the blessing, gave it to them, and said, "This is my blood, take and drink. Do this in your memory." Now that's in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark and Luke. If you look in those 3 Gospels, towards the end of the Gospel, that's basically the same story that's given to you by each. John has a different recollection, or a different story. John speaks of the Last Supper, when Jesus washed the feet of the disciples. So at this last meal he had with his disciples, he took his clothes off, put a towel around him, got a bowl of water, and went and knelt at the feet of each of his disciples and washed them, wiping them with the towel. Peter said, "You're not going to wash my feet." And Jesus said, "Unless I wash your feet, you can have nothing to do with me." Peter said, "Well, not just my feet, but my head and all of my body." And Jesus said, "Somebody who has washed doesn't need another bath." But Jesus did say, "As I wash your feet, you are to wash the feet of others." So as far as John is concerned, the Last Supper was a meal of service, when Jesus was showing us how we are to serve others. And that's why Jesus came. I didn't come to live, I came to serve. Jesus came to serve us. And that's what he did at that last meal. We do that on Holy Thursday. Every Holy Thursday we celebrate and we remember the washing of the feet. Usually 12 parishioners, men, women, children, come up. They sit at the sanctuary on chairs. They're very embarrassed because they have to take their shoes off. They take their shoe off, and the priest goes along and washes their feet and dries their feet, symbolically reliving that event. Our Pope went to prison. He didn't go to prison as the rest of the centuries. He went to a prison over in Rome where he visited the people, and he washed the feet of 12 of the inmates, men and women. Didn't matter what faith they were. He washed their feet to show that he is the servant of them, just as Jesus was the servant of us and asked us to be the servant of everybody else. For John, the Eucharist, the meal of the Eucharist, actually happened on the cross. So when Jesus was crucified, when his body was broken up on the cross, John, that's the breaking of the bread. And as his blood was pouring from him, as he hung up on the cross, when they lanced his side, that's the wine, that's the sharing of the blood of Christ. So for John, when we celebrate the Eucharist, when we break the bread, when we share the wine, break the body, share the blood, for John, that's us, remembering Jesus being back up on the cross and doing that for others, for us, for suffering. Since the time of the early church, the followers of Jesus, who were originally called followers of the way, some years later Christians, they gathered, they listened to the word, they offered gifts for the church and for the poor, and they ate the bread and drank the wine. They did all that in memory of Jesus. It wasn't a clean event. A bunch of people got together in a house, and there was lots of noise, and there was lots of clapping, and they brought along their chickens and their wine and their wheat and maybe their animals which they were offering to the community. So all these people, all this noise, all this stuff, and they would have people there who were called deacons who used to yell out, "Be quiet, the mass is starting." Quite as bold as that these days. And then they would listen to the word of God. They'd be nourished by the word of God, offer their gifts. They would take their gifts up and offer them to the priest, and those gifts some would be used for the celebration of the sacrament, and some would then be given to the poor, and it was the deacon's role to do that. We do that. We do that in Mass. We come to Mass, we listen to the word, we're nourished by the word, we receive the bread and the body and blood of Christ, and we offer our gifts. We offer through the collections of Mass, we offer money, which is used to look after the poor. So we continue that tradition. When we eat the bread and drink the cup, particularly the cup, we're sharing in the suffering of Jesus. And we confirm that we suffer with and for the people of God. And who are the people of God? Everyone. Everyone is the people of God. Our role as a Christian, as a follower of Christ, is to look after everyone as best we can. Now, when you receive communion, it's not that you've been a good boy or girl and you're therefore entitled to receive the host. That's not the way it works. Communion is not a reward for people who do good. Communion is food for the journey. In Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, I don't know if you watch those movies, there's one movie where Frodo and Sam are going up mountains and through passes, and they're trying to get a volcano to throw the ring back into the volcano for it to melt. And they take along with them a packet of bread, or what looks like hard bread, or biscuits, and that gets lost during the journey. But they take a little nibble of that bread, and it nourishes them enough to go on. Now, Tolkien, the author, was Catholic, and the bread symbolises the Eucharist. So in his story, he weaved the Eucharist into the story, and the bread that they nibbled on was the bread of the Eucharist. During Mass, before we receive communion, we pray the Our Father. And this was the prayer that Jesus gave his disciples and said, "Master, teach us to pray." So Jesus took bits of Hebrew scripture, cobbled them together, and fashioned a prayer we know as the Our Father, where we get to call God Abba Father. And in that prayer we say, "Our Father," not my Father, our Father. And we say, "Give us this day our daily bread." Not give me my daily bread, give us our daily bread. And we say, "Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive the others." So it's a communal prayer. We're praying as a community to our Father, Abba, God Father. And we're asking God to give us, all of us, our daily bread, what we need. Not what we ask for perhaps, but what we need. And communion, true communion, will never be complete until every man, woman and child gets what they need to survive. So until we are able, somehow, to share the resources of the planet with all of the people of this world, so that nobody dies of hunger, nobody dies of polluted water, when that has happened, and all people can truly share at the table of the Lord. When we come up to communion, we come up in procession. We come up the aisle in procession. In the days when we had music, we used to have music and singing. These days we just walk up silently. But we process together, not individually. We come out as a family, we're coming up in communion to receive the communion. When you go to Mass, when does Mass begin? Well, Mass begins at home, when you're starting to get ready. So all that messiness of getting ready to go to church, and you know what it's like, you try and get the kids to get dressed, not look at the television, not play with that toy, stop chasing each other, stop beating each other up, get out to the car, get out to the car, get out to the car. All of that is Mass. Mass has already started. Everyone is getting ready for this celebration, for this Eucharist, for this communion, for this gathering. So that's part of it. We come to church and we have an opening hymn when we did singing, and then we have an opening prayer, and then we have other prayers, and then we sit down and we listen to the Word of God. And then we receive the body and blood of God in memory of Christ. We're nourished by the Word, we're nourished by the body, and we're challenged by the blood. We're challenged by the blood to get out there and do better. And we're charged to go forward and make a difference. Now we're going to go through the booklet with you for the next little bit, and as I say, we're going to do sessions 1 and 2 this time. Session 1 is called Bread of Life, and session 2, This is My Body. And if you look at your booklet, and I hope the page numbers are the same, on pages 2 and 3, that's at the start of the booklet, hopefully your PDF follows the same format, you'll see the contents. It just sets out the contents of how the book all works, and tells you the different sessions and the different chapters of those sessions. If you flip through to pages 8, page 8 tells us what the session teaches us. And this, for the parents, is on the left-hand side in the brown column, and it tells us that what we are taught is that family meal times are important. Jesus shared meals, meal language is part of the scripture. Having received baptism and confirmation, the Eucharist completes our children's sacramental initiation as a Catholic. And the Eucharist is the high point of our journey as Christians, as Christian initiation. So it tells us what it's all about. Then we get on to pages 10, 11 and 12. Page 10 talks about the importance of meal times, and we all know that. And it's hard these days, isn't it, to have a family meal, to sit down together to dinner. It's easier for somebody to take food when they need it and eat it and go off. But the joy of having a family all sitting around the table until somebody spills something, or there's some other disaster which happens at our family tables. I haven't mine, I don't know if that is yours. It's great to gather all the people together to share. We have 2 4-year-old boys, our twin grandsons, living with us, and they love it when the family all sits together and eats. They don't eat much food, but they love being there to be part of that celebration. So we have everyday meals, as we know, breakfast, lunch, dinner, or how many you have. I think some people have second breakfast and third breakfast. And then we have special meals, birthdays, Christmases, first year Christmas meals, parties, barbecues. We have all of those meals, and the other one loves to go out for a barbecue in good weather, to go outside and enjoy our beautiful climate. If we go to pages 14 and 15, then we have meals that were important to Jesus. And on page 15 they have pictures of the various meals. The first one they talk about is a wedding feast at Cana. You might remember that. This all comes from Scripture, and they've got scriptural passages there. It's a good idea if kids don't have a Bible, and hopefully they do, but if they don't have a Bible, get one. A children's Bible might be more helpful for them because it's more user-friendly for a younger person. But help them navigate through it. You've got the Old Testament, which takes up probably 2/3 or almost 3/4 of the Bible, and then you've got the New Testament, which is at the back. The 4 Gospels are at the start of the New Testament, and those are the things you'll hear every Sunday at your Gospel reading. And then after that, you've got the various letters, the Acts of the Apostles, and the other ones you hear at one of the other readings in Mass. So it'd be helpful to look at page 15, see the scriptural references. First one is John 2, next one Luke 7, John 6, Mark 14, John 21, Luke 24, and help your child find it. Don't find it for them. Show it where it is, show them how it's broken up. You go Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. That's the breakup of it. And I used to remember that. It's Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. God bless the bed that I lay on. It's a prayer we used to say when I was a kid. So they know where it is, get them to look it up and find the verse themselves and then read the verse to you. So they're getting used to finding Scripture and reading Scripture. So the first one was the wedding feast at Cana with Mary, and Jesus turned water into wine. Pretty good party trick. Wouldn't mind learning that myself. And then a meal where a woman came whilst he was having a meal and she washed his feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. Brilliant reading, and a powerful message in that reading. And the miracle of the loaves and fishes. Jesus fed 5,000 men, not to mention women and children, with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Pretty neat trick. That's a great story. And the last meal Jesus shared with his disciples. Then when Jesus rose from the dead, he appeared on the beach to the disciples who were fishing. Peter had said, "I'm going fishing," which meant this is all over. Jesus is dead. The hope we had is gone. He's not the Messiah. I'm going back to my trade as a fisherman. And other disciples said, "We'll come with you." So they went to the beach. They went out on the boat. They weren't catching anything. And this lone figure appeared on the beach, called to them and said, "How are you going?" And they came back not very good. And said, "We'll cast out on the other side." They cast out on the other side, and they caught so many fish that they had difficulty bringing them into the boat. And John said, "It is the Lord." And Peter jumped into the water, very impulsive Peter, jumped into the water and swam to the beach. The others came along in the boat and got there just about the same time Peter did. And then Jesus said, "Bring some of the fish to make for the meal." Nobody said, "Hello Jesus, how are you going, where have you been?" None of that. They just accepted that this was Jesus, the Lord, the Christ, the Messiah, here in front of them, and they had something to eat. And then there's the story of the road to Emmaus. Two other disciples are going home. They live in Emmaus. Jesus has been crucified. Their hopes are dashed, so they're going home. And as they're journeying home, they're joined by a fellow traveller, who is Jesus. And Jesus opens up for them the scriptures. He opens their eyes so they can understand all the scriptural passages referred to him. Fantastic story. They still don't recognise him, but when they get to where they're going, he's going to walk on and say, no, stay with us, come and have a meal. He agrees, goes into their home, and they set before him food, and he takes the bread and he breaks it. And as he breaks the bread, they realise this is Jesus. And then he disappeared. And they rush back to Jerusalem to tell them the sign. Great story. Pages 18 and 19, 16 and 17, we've got the feeding of the 5,000 we talked about. Well, they don't get about the feeding of the 5,000. All these people have gone to find Jesus in this lonely place. No shops, no farms, nothing around them. And the only person who had any sense to take any food with them was a small boy who had 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. What about all the other people? How come none of them had any food? I don't get that. But anyway, Jesus worked Jesus' miracle. But in some of the Gospel readings, in Matthew and Luke and John, Jesus, when he takes the bread and says the blessing and breaks it, he gives the bread to the disciples. Before that, he'd already said to them, they had said, send the people away, there's not enough food, send them to the farms so they get something to eat. And Jesus said, feed them yourselves. Now those words they come down through the centuries to us. They're words to us. Anybody who hasn't got enough, feed them yourselves. We don't say they should do something about it. It's a great shame. Someone should do something about it. Feed them yourselves. That's the Jesus' direction to us. Then when he blessed and broke the bread, he gave it to the disciples. He said, distribute it. So they sat the people down, they went and shared the food. And same with they shared the fish. And then they collected up the crumbs. So it was Jesus doing the great miracle, performing the great miracle, but allowing the disciples to share what he'd done with all the others. Brilliant stuff. And then we get to pages 18 and 19, I am the bread of life. And on page 18 you see up the top, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and who believes in me will never be thirsty. Words of Jesus in the Gospel of John. The bread of life. Jesus is the bread of life. He's the way, the truth, and the life. He is the Prince of Peace. He is the Son of Man. He is the Son of God. Jesus is our Saviour. And Jesus is the bread of our life. When Jesus said, I am the bread of life, take and eat, some of the disciples couldn't eat it because in the Jewish faith you don't eat human flesh, obviously. Our faith's the same rule. You don't eat human flesh. Jesus is offering his body as food, and they couldn't have it, so they left. And Jesus said to Peter, what about you? What are you going to do? You guys going to go too? And Peter said, where will we go, Lord? You have the words of eternal life. So Peter and the other disciples remained true to Jesus, whereas all the others fills it away. It's not long before Jesus dies. And on page 19, there's a prayer, and I invite you to write your children to write a prayer. Think of someone you know who has loved and who has died, a grandparent, a loved one. Write a prayer for that person, praying that they will live forever. And draw a picture of the person that Jesus said. There's a blue figure in the little picture, which I think is Jesus, and you're asked to draw a picture of the person with Jesus. And then share that prayer or drawing at your family table. Then we get on pages 20 and 21, closing the session and things to do with life. There's a prayer that we can use to close the session, and things we can do at home, family meals, table tips, family outreach, worksheets, and things to do with Mass. Good idea to take the kids to Mass a few times so that they can familiarise themselves with the building, with all the workings, with what goes on when we stand. And we'd be funny we stand and kneel and sit. Our Masses are living, breathing, moving organisms. So we get up, we sit down, we kneel, we get up and sit down, all those things. And helpful for the children to know what's going on so they don't feel too lost when they go out. Pages 22 and 23, it says, how well do you know your parish church? I invite you to go to your church, either St Joseph's or St Rose, and draw the various items, the lectern, the altar, the sanctuary light, the tabernacle, the baptismal font, and any image of Mary. Every Catholic church has an image of Mary, at least one. So you'll find those. It's both the name parish church, it could be St Joseph's Narrabeen, St Rose, Coleroy, or the Church of St Joseph Narrabeen, or St Rose, Coleroy, or wherever else your parish church is. In St Rose, we're in St Rose at the moment, this is the lectern, the place where people stand and speak, this is the lectern. There's your altar over there, the hexagonal structure. Sanctuary light, there's a little light over the side near the tabernacle. The tabernacle is down at Joey's, it's a steel or metal structure with a cloth around it, and it has a red light that indicates that there are hosts in the tabernacle. At St Rose, it's a wooden structure built into the wall with which is, in itself has a red light. So that's the sanctuary light, and the tabernacle is in those two places. Baptismal font in St Rose, beautiful marble baptismal font, and if you ever take time to stare at to study it, you'll see that at the back of the baptismal font is rough stone. And then as it graduates to the front, the stone becomes smoother. When the font is turned on, and currently it's turned off because of COVID-19, water flows through the font from the back to the front and down the front, and then comes back again. The whole idea is to wear that rough stone. When you start life, wear that rough bit of stone, and then as the Word of God and as the life of God, the life of Jesus comes through us, we become finer and we become like the refined stone in the front. One down at Joey's is a different structure. It's a wooden font, which one of our precious now died built, and it has a bowl inside it with stones. Each are beautiful in their own way and significant. In St Joseph's, as you enter the church from the back door, the font is to your left, down the front, and St Rose, as you enter the two doors from the back, the font is to your right, and you can't miss it. It's a big structure. Image of Mary, in St Rose Church where I am now, there's a statue of Mary over in a side chapel, Marian Chapel over there next to the door, so that's about halfway down the church. Look to the right, you'll see it. Down at Joey's, there's a statue of Mary on the right again as you walk in the church. If you look to the right, it's on the right wing of the church up the back. There's a statue of Mary there. So that's our pictures. And that is the end of session chapter 1. Session 2, this is my body. So, in session 2, this is my body. If we look to pages 24 and 25, we talk about the meaning of the Eucharist. If you look in the brown section, it talks about the meaning of the Eucharist and the Last Supper. On page 28, click through it. If you look on page 26, there's another thing the kids can perform, and there's the Last Supper, the Gospel of Mark, the celebration of the Eucharist. If you look to page 28. There's another puzzle that kids can do, a word puzzle, and they fill in the pieces. And page 29, we talk about Jesus being present in the Eucharist. Then we have Thanksgiving, a memorial, the presence of Jesus, communion. That's all in the round section on the right side. As we pray together at Mass, bread becomes the body of Christ. The wine becomes the body and the blood of Christ. When we go to communion, we come down the line and we stand in front of the minister holds the host up and says, "This is the body of Christ." And we say, "Amen." And Amen means yes, we believe that. That's true. This is the body of Christ. And then we receive the body of Christ. And at that time, this was explained to me by one of our priests, one of our theologian priests, that when the minister holds the Eucharist, when the minister says the word, "This is the body of Christ," when we confirm it is Amen, and when we receive it, all of us become the body of Christ. The minister, the host, and us become the body of Christ in that one moment. Pretty powerful stuff, isn't it? And by sharing the Eucharist, we're called to live a life of self-giving love and humble service. You go to page 30. As I said before, Eucharist is not a private matter, it's an action of the Church, for the Church. And when the Spirit of the risen Christ embraces us in the Eucharist, we're open to the discovery of our gifts. Each one of us has been gifted by the Holy Spirit with one or more special gifts, things that we can use for everybody's benefit. You may be a good singer, a good dancer, a great sports person, a good speaker, a good artist. You might have a skill, a good thinker, a skill or a talent which has been given to you by God to be used. My mum used to say to me that if God gives you gifts or talents, if you don't use them, you'll lose them. And not use them for us, but use them for everybody. So we're giving these things by God, these gifts. And parents, look at your kids. You can see what they're good at. Kids, look at your parents. You can see what they're good at. And you should share it with them. Tell them what you think they're good at. And parents, tell your kids what you think they're good at, that you can see. And there might be other things that haven't developed yet. All of these are gifts of the Holy Spirit given to us. And through the Eucharist, we are nourished to use those gifts for the people in our lives. We become the body of Christ. And becoming the body of Christ, we share those gifts. And on page 31, there's an outline of the body of Christ. And reading from 1 Corinthians, we're all baptised into one body. We are the body of Christ, and each of us is a member of the body of Christ. And you're going to draw yourself within the picture of Jesus. Draw yourself and other members of your church family in that picture. Page 32 talks about presentation. We're not going to have a presentation of the candidates this session, but all the Christians are praying for your children. Everyone is praying for children who are to receive the first Eucharist. And I can tell you, when your child celebrates their first Eucharist in Mass, every Christian will be looking, and they'll have a sense of awe and wonder, and they'll be going back to the days when we received our first Eucharist, and they'll be looking at the wonder in the kids' faces and the way they come up. So very much a part of our lives and of our memory and our celebration. And on page 32, we've done the individual, page 33, the Eucharist offers us strength to all who shoulder life's burdens, strength of the weak, support of the sick, balm that heals the wounds, and food for the journey. That's a lot for receiving the body of Christ, but this is the miracle of the Eucharist. All of that is part of the Eucharist that we receive. Page 34, we have the Eucharistic call. And the Eucharistic call is to active participation in the communal way of life, to be the body of Christ, loving as Jesus loved. How did Jesus love? Jesus died for us. That's how much Jesus loved. And that's what we're called to do. We are called to die to ourselves for others. By that I mean we don't all drop down dead, but we live not for ourselves, but for other people. And if you look on 35, you'll see some more word games for the kids to fill in. And there are the words at the top of the page, and they have to slot them into the various sections if they can And that's the end of the first two sessions we've come to. Work through it with your kids in your own time, at their own time. You know what's best time for you to do it. You know what's best time for you. Try and do it without distraction. Don't have the television on. Try not to be distracted by telephones and calls out. Try and devote some time just to be with your children, because you're going to get so much out of this program. You are going to share with your children your faith. You're not going to get that very often in life. So cherish it, nourish it. And kids, you've got mum and dad's full attention. They're full attention, not thinking about other things, not thinking about work, not worrying what's going to be made for dinner. You've got their full attention for this little bit of time. Share it and be part of it together. That's the end of these two chapters or sessions, and on our next talk we'll talk about sessions 3 and 4. So enjoy the program, enjoy it together. If you have any questions, you can mail them into the the parish office, or you can ring the parish office, and they can be for me, Deacon David. I didn't introduce myself, which I'm embarrassed. I'm Deacon David, the deacon of the parish. You can email them, ask them of me, or ask them of Father Robert, or anybody else. And I'd like to thank Richard Fitzgerald, who has filmed this short piece. He's very much part of the program. He's there all the time, doing all the work in the background. And his wife Sandra for allowing him to do that. So thanks guys, get into it, enjoy it, and we'll speak to you again.